26, 72, 23, 65, 57, 52, 0, 33. 26, 6, 72, 23, 65, 57, 52, 0, 33. 6, 27, 57, 69, 17, 23, 25. 26 6 72 23 65 57 52 euro 33 26 6 72 23 65 57 52 euro 33 26 6 72 23 65 57 52 euro 33 26 6 72 23 65 57 52 euro 33 back close appetite 26 6 72 23 65 57
ale,
52 euro 33
abridgments, consumed,
26 6
banger,
72 23 65 57 52 euro
accessorize,
astonishingly
appetizer,
26 6 72 23
avidity,
65
animals,
52 euro 33
allocates,
baptize
anesthetising, antagonation, alterations, ascertaining, advisory, activation, acupuncturist, arteries, annuity, antiquated, articulating, aseptic, annunciating, ateliers, aerodynamically, additives, attenuating, allowance, antiquated, acknowledgement, associated, advertising, affiliations, antagonism, apology, assignments,
Let me show this. Oh, you're good. All right. I think we're live. Yeah. It's a moment of really interesting feedback there.
Okay.
But that's everything seems to be working all right. Let me check in with our QA team. Just let me ask Kathleen if it's working all right. All right, we are good. Everyone out there in the internet land, let's give a big welcome to Charles Woodman. It's very exciting to have him here for our live Q&A. Yay. So this is not really a scripted Q&A. So I thought we would just chat a bit about your piece, but you want to start maybe by telling people about your collaborators and how this piece came about?
Oh, sure. I can tell you a little bit about that. I mean, I've been working with these guys for a few years now, maybe 5 years. So we did 2 performances in Brescia, one about 5 years ago. And I first met Fabrizio over the internet because I was admiring his work so much. I just wrote to him and said, oh, this is really cool. I like it. And then we started corresponding, and then, you know, I showed him some things that I was doing, and then it seemed like there might be some relationship between the two. And then I ended up being in Brescia, so we organized a performance there. And then last October, I went back, and they organized another one. So I went back for that. And then now with the COVID, we decided to try something where we would all improvise over the internet, which had some technical problems, but actually made it much easier for us to work together. Because if I had to go to Italy or if they were to come to Oakland, I mean, that's very complicated to arrange. It takes a lot of funding, right? Whereas for us to talk to each other on Zoom, not hard to do at all. So we ended up sort of doing the improvisation via Zoom. But then afterwards, I went back and re-rendered the images because I had recorded them separately, and then I re-rendered them at full resolution. And then I sent the file back to them, and they had recorded the audio separately. So they rendered the audio as well, so that the marriage sort of, it reflects all the interaction that happened in the improvisation, but then all the parts were re-rendered at a higher resolution.
Okay, yeah.
What we presented today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, wait, so
It's a little bit confusing.
What was the tech that you used for that? Like, how'd you do the improvisation part? Was it?
Oh, well, I use a VJ software called Modulate. So Modulate allows me to mix video clips in real time and make a lot of layers and different effects and stuff. And I can do all that in real time. And then Modulate also has a feature called Virtual Record. So when you do a performance and it's going out in real time, you can also record the performance virtually. And then it goes back and renders all those actions later at whatever resolution you tell it to.
Okay, nice. So did you do that first?
And then I don't know what they used on their end, but they had some way of recording the audio that they were feeding into Zoom, also as a separate record that they made of it at a higher res.
Yeah, okay.
So we sort of
And
actually
Zoom,
collaborated together at low res, and then we each went back and re-rendered our parts to match what we had done before at a higher resolution.
that's a good way to do it, because Zoom is great for, just connecting, but
Right.
the resolution's a huge problem.
And I mean, the basic premise of it is sort of that I improvise the pictures to their music, and that they in turn are improvising the music to the pictures. So both sides are sort of influencing each other dynamically as we move forward. So it's not a fixed composition or pre-recorded composition. It's just sort of something that we all make up as we go along.
And it looked like you had a keyboard there, was that a MIDI keyboard?
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a sort of MIDI mixing board that I use, and I have some functions of the Modulate mapped onto that. So instead of twiddling knobs in software, which is kind of awkward, I have, actual sliders that I can push up and down and knobs that I can turn.
Oh, nice.
And so then I just have a physical interface to control that software. Yeah, so if I want to, dissolve from one thing to another or superimpose one image over another, I can do that, and I can sort of see what I'm doing at the time. I get real-time feedback from all this. And that is just like it's just a MIDI mixer. I mean, mostly it's used for audio, but I just sort of adapted it for video purposes.
I'm guessing like something like that probably comes in handy for live shows when you don't have a light or to be able to see things and having that tactile kind of quality.
Yeah, no, I've been using it, I don't know, for about 10 years now. So I've reached the point where I can really just use the software as a means of creating expression. I'm not trying to figure out or demonstrate what it can do. I'm sort of the master now of what it can do, although I keep learning new wrinkles. And then I can just really use it like somebody else would play an instrument as a form of expression.
Let me see if there are questions from the
let's see if any questions are coming in.
If people want to put anything in the chat, I can ask them to Charles here. So Eric says, wish that had been longer. He wants more.
Okay.
We probably is that something that you generally like plan ahead for? I'm thinking about live shows. Do you plan the amount of time, specific ending point, or where does the improvisation end and like what you planned kind of intersect?
Yeah, well, usually we have we have a sort of mutual clock that everybody's running, so we can all see how long we've been going. So if there's an agreement maybe to end at 30 or 45 minutes, something like that, we sort of know when we're getting there at the end. And then sometimes I build a little ending that the musicians know about beforehand. So then it's nice because we can all end on a dime. But on the other hand, sometimes people that I'm playing with don't want to have an ending like that. So then just at a certain point, they go silent or I go dark. We just sort of feel our way through it. And in Modulate, I sort of have a palette of images that I make for a particular performance. So I might have 100 in my palette, but maybe I only use 30 or 40 or something in the actual show that we saw. So I can always, choose more. Every time it's not the same.
So, but there's another question too about the software used for this performance over the internet, and you said it was just Zoom, right? At least just to get the collaboration going, right?
Yes.
It would probably, maybe that's a question for Maurizio and Fabrizio. How did they get their sound into Zoom? Because I know that's probably not hard to do, but you do need probably some kind of capture device to get it into the computer.
Right, and I don't know what they were using, but I know that they had some kind of way of capturing it. Yes.
So
something I wasn't aware of.
So what were some of the sources of the imagery? That's one of the questions here.
Right. I'm trying to remember what they were. There were a lot of them.
I saw a lot of science fiction in there, which I love.
There was a lot of sort of science stuff. About
science fact.
Part of the theme of the whole thing was, the city and the stars. So some of it was around that. So yeah, I don't know. There were images of solar flares, of computer animation, of images from the Ghost in the Shell, some things like that. A huge number of things. I don't know, some things that looked like stars, but then they were kind of falling down. I don't know what all this stuff is in a way. I just have a palette with lots of little tiny loops, and then I sort of combine the loops in various ways.
I noticed a range from really early surrealist film, Maya Deren being in there, for instance, and all the way up to sci-fi films, and some there was a gymnast or something in there too.
Yeah, I mean, I had Maya Deren in there, and Gunvar Nelson is another one. I mean, one thing I like to do is take clips from sort of classics of avant-garde cinema. And then I mean, just little snippets, which then I sort of try to combine them with other things in making a new mix. So yeah, I mean, I use documentaries, science films. I mean, there was a lot of sort of science, sort of stellar stuff. I mean, that I just took off the internet, right?
So yeah, talk to me about that. Like, what are your thoughts about the internet as far as being this place for collecting media or sourcing media? Is that even still possible today? Like,
for me, it is. I mean, I use it as a source for most of the stuff that I grab. I mean, occasionally I'm watching a movie at home, but even then I'm pretty much watching it off the internet these days. I mean, I used to grab stuff off DVDs, and before that off VHS tapes. But at this point, mostly I'm just downloading stuff from the internet. So I find a lot of footage on Vimeo, for example. I use that maybe more than YouTube. But yeah, I guess I still think it's possible.
It kind of makes me think of you know, like you're a VJ kind of sampling. You're sampling tracks and mixing tracks. You know.
Right. No, that's exactly the idea. Yeah, and that's what the software I use is. It's a VJ software. I mean, I think most of the people that are using it in clubs are probably not doing what I'm doing with it. But yeah, no, you can grab little videos or longer ones and then mix them together and fade them out. All the pieces I have are pretty short. I just use these little short loops.
Oh, here's a question from Tim. Tim Perkis actually was just did a show with us a couple of weekends ago.
Yeah, I know Tim.
So he's wondering about the audio in Zoom. Are you able to work that way in a Zoom meeting when the audio is coming from more than one site?
So all I can say is I don't really understand how they did this, but they had some way of linking their audio together so there was no delay. There were two musicians playing, and they were in two discrete places, but that somehow they were able to combine their sound with some hardware that they had before they fed it into Zoom.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that there wasn't a delay for the two of them, because I can accommodate a certain amount of delay in what I'm doing, but for two musicians to play together, but also I think the style that those musicians used maybe would allow a certain amount of delay, because they weren't like trying to match a beat or really stay together very much. So actually, maybe it was more that.
Yeah, and the high res was kind of recorded on each of your ends, right? So
right.
And then all kind of combined together.
Yeah. So in the end, we just used the Zoom sort of keep everything in sync, and then we replaced all the parts of that recording, the audio and the video.
Yeah. So even Maurizio.
But it's true that it wasn't
separate.
When it was presented here to the audience, it wasn't actually a live improvisation. We had made it an improvisation, but it was sort of a pre-recorded improvisation by the time it got to you.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to do it for audiences, just because the part of the live improvisations where all the tech kind of goes wrong and you're asking if you can hear.
I'm still working on that problem too. You know, I have some other musicians and they really want to do something where we're all live, but we haven't quite figured out the solution to that problem.
And we might still, I mean, as much as, you know, Zoom and all these companies want to make us believe that we're in this like connected world and everything is streaming and whatnot, I think the technology is still really primitive. Like,
yeah, oh yeah. No, well, it certainly wasn't designed for this kind of application, right? It works pretty good for having conversation with somebody remotely. But if you're trying to make sound or images that you really care about, no, it's pretty hard for that to come across in the Zoom meeting.
yeah. I think everyone around the world is dealing with that right now. Just thinking about school children who have to be on Zoom all day.
No, well, that seems pretty terrible for them. Yeah.
So tell me, what are you working on now? Do you have any upcoming projects?
Well, I am working on trying to do this live collaboration. But like I said, we haven't really figured out the tech part of it yet. I mean, every time we meet, we're kind of exploring new possibilities for that. And then I don't know. I mean, yeah, pretty much I'm oriented towards doing live performances. And so when live performances sort of went away, and Gilbert, I see you right now, you're sitting in an empty theater with nobody in the seats behind you. I mean, it's disconcerting. It's a little strange. But anyway, I'm trying to do some things as a solo artist, because that doesn't involve any collaboration, right?
Okay.
And then if I just make a video of myself and I edit it, and then I can put it out there as a streaming video or just send somebody the link to it. So that seems to be working. So I've been doing some shooting related to some things like that. And then I worked with another friend of mine for a while on something that was sort of response to the George Floyd killing and all that. So he recorded a bunch of elements, and then I took some elements off the internet, and then I recombined them. And then he and I just had an ongoing discussion about how that might work. So that piece is also up on my website.
Oh,
I Can't Breathe, it's called.
Right. I don't see any more questions from the audience here, so and we have a limited amount of time here in Zoom, but anything else that you want to share that you're up to? Just
well, right now I'm in Stinson Beach.
Oh.
So I hear the waves crashing behind me. Yeah, it's really nice. But sort of strange. The phones don't work out here. So when I try to call anybody, it's not a possibility.
Oh, really?
And we're sitting at two ends of a very long table, me and my friends. So my wife and I are at one end, and they're way at the other end, you know, more than 6 feet apart. And we're sort of shouting at each other to have a conversation over the waves. That's the report from Stinson Beach tonight.
The beach part of it sounds great.
No, it is great. Anyway, thank you very much for presenting it, Gilbert. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. And I hope that whoever logged in enjoyed it. And now that it's up, I imagine some other people will be coming on in the next while too.
Yeah, that's something we want to do, is make this available for people to watch after the fact. You know, I really appreciate the work that you're doing here. You're still collaborating. You're trying to make it happen. You're going above and beyond, like, to reach out and work with people across the world. I mean, I think that's you're taking advantage of the moment, which is great. Not that we all want to be in this moment, but but I appreciate that you're working with it. You know, you're doing something with it, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sort of the possibilities that the moment was allowing. So just trying to work with it. Look at it as an opportunity instead of it's just a disadvantage. Seems like the best attitude.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much again.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Cheers.